I wanted to share some of the features I've been working on for the next major release of Illuminated Cloud 2.0 that I'll be releasing hopefully later this year, maybe around third quarter. I don't have details at all on 2.0 other than the fact that I'm shooting for later this year and some of the features that will be going into it, but things like pricing, upgrade policy, things like that, I don't have those details. I will be sharing those when those do become available. For the moment, what I do want to do is share some of the work that I've been putting into it. One of the most requested feature sets for Illuminated Cloud has been refactoring. And in particular, at the very top of that list is generally the rename refactoring, just because of the frequency of usage that folks would have for that. So let's take a look at that. Let's start by looking at renaming an actual class. And so we have this class called rename. You can see in the title bar that the file is called rename.cls. And you can see that in the file system, that is in fact the name of the file, plus it has its meta XML file. So let's rename this to be, say, rename me. Go ahead and hit enter, and we can see that not only was the class renamed, but additionally the constructor and all references to that class are renamed. And in the title bar, you can see that the actual file in the file system was renamed. And skipping back over to the file system window, you can see that the companion file was renamed as well. And in fact, because this is just hooking into IntelliJ's fantastic refactoring capabilities, which are transactional in nature, if we undo that, it'll undo all of the work that it did. Plus, you can look in the file system and see that it reverted the file name changes as well. Again, this is exactly what you would expect to happen, but in the past, this has been something that's been quite manual and onerous to do. So now let's take a look at what we can do with other types of variable renames. And so let's just take a property, member variable property, and call it say prop. And you can see that not only was the the declaration renamed, the usages were renamed, and you can obviously initiate this action from either a reference or the declaration. And so works just fine here as well. And you can see that it's all in kind of an inline rename, so that you're just typing and you can see it exactly what's going on. Let's take a look at things like loop variable. Change this to everyone's favorite loop variable I, and everything's fine. And then let's take a look at what happens with, say, an enum called color, and we'll just change that to colors, and we can see that everything changed. And we'll change an enum constant to lowercase syntax. One of the other things I want to show is that this is all semantically aware, so it's not just a global search and replace or anything like that. In this case, I have a field, a member variable called member variable, and then I've got a method parameter called member variable, and of course I've got to qualify the field in order to make sure that the assignment works properly. You can even see with the highlighting, this is how it's always worked, that it distinguishes between the two. But the refactoring does as well. If I call this mv param, you can see that only the parameter is being updated. And if I call this, say, my member variable, you can see that only the member variable is updated. So it is taking into account the fact that according to the abstract syntax tree that's been created and things like that, these are distinct. And so it's not just a blanket search and replace, it's an intelligent refactoring. In fact, let's take a look at some of the other things that are possible with this. Let's move over to this project where I actually have a visual force controller, could be the Apex controller for a lightning component, that would be fine. And I have get shopping list, which is used as a pseudo property in the markup. So you can see when I find usages in place here, you can see references to this called shopping list, in spite of the fact that the method is called get shopping list. Again, something that people use all the time, but there is a disconnect, a naming disconnect between the two. And so let's rename this to be get list. And let's take a look at what happened to those references. You can see that the references were changed, list.name instead of shopping list.name. And even if we navigate to those, we can see that that's in fact the case. I can navigate back to the method. I can undo that. And I can see that it reverts to get shopping list. And I can go back to the page and you can see that it reverted across the entire code base, all the references. And then similarly, if you had a method in the controller that was used as an action here, delete shopping list, you can see it's used by the Apex test, and you can see that it's used as an action in an Apex command button attribute. So let's take a look at what happens when I rename that. So we'll just call that del SL and find usages, and of course you can see that it was updated. The action attribute of the command button component was updated here to actually reflect the naming change. So the goal here is that you have full relational integrity of your symbols across your entire metadata base, and that the rename refactoring allows you to evolve those as you want over time in as simple a fashion as possible. So so this will be the first of several refactorings. Obviously, I would love to implement all of the refactorings that are available for Java. Some of them get quite complex. I'm going to priority order those. My guess is that immediately following the rename refactoring will come some of the extraction refactorings, in particular extract variable, extract constant, extract field, extract method parameter, things like that, and eventually add things like a change method signature. But anyways, I did want to show just a preview because I know that this rename refactoring is something everybody's been wanting. Just to clarify one more time, this is not something I plan to introduce in the 1.x line. This will be in 2.0 later this year. I do plan to add several more things to the 1.x line. One of the main things being Salesforce DX, because I want everybody that's already bought the product to be able to work in the Salesforce DX world as soon as it's released. So I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you very much.